radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this August 7th, Thursday. Hope everybody's having a fantastic week. Looking forward to Friday and to the weekend. I'm still and will be for a while in Lisbon. I really like this city. Like Barcelona, the food here is really good. Not quite Barcelona level, but really good. And we haven't really started going to the nicer restaurants, I would say. But just the restaurants we've been to, everything's been good. It's not as easy to walk in. I think I said that yesterday in Lisbon. It's just more uphill. Get more exercise. It's more of a workout. But anyway, I have an office here, and I have wired internet, and so yeah, that's cool. If you remember Barcelona, every night was a battle between me and Wi-Fi. So we're safe. We're safe here in Lisbon in that sense. All right, we've got a lot to talk about today. I think got quite a bit to talk about, and of course you can shape the show by doing super chats, but you know all that. And so let's just jump in with our first topic. And really, the first topic and our fourth topic are kind of topics that come out of yesterday. So I got a lot of, not a lot, I got some criticism, not a lot, from objectivists online for my defense of school choice. Basically, the claim is that I am now no longer an advocate for the separation of state of education, that I am a incrementalist. I didn't know that there was such an incrementalism was a bad thing necessarily. That I'm not an incrementalist and have betrayed Ayn Rand's philosophy by supporting a school choice. So let me say a few things to that, and to try to clarify my position and to make it clear where I stand. One, I believe, and we should continue to argue constantly about complete separation of state from education. That is the ultimate goal. Just like the ultimate goal is getting rid of the Federal Reserve, having private banks issue currency, doing away with Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, and any government regulation of healthcare, just like we believe in a complete separation of state from economics. And ultimately, we hold that taxes should be zero, and taxes should be voluntary payments made by citizens to the government. All of that is the ultimate. Separation of state from education, separation of state from science, separation of state from economics, separation of state from the ideas business in any form, religion or otherwise. That is what I believe. That's, I think, what objectivism holds. And if I had my druthers and could rewrite the American Constitution, I would include all of those in that Constitution. But the reality is that to get there, we are going to have to advocate for stages, with that always as the goal. So, for example, it's going to take years, decades, to get to the point where we privatize all the banks and get rid of the Federal Reserve. Should we, in the meantime, not advocate for intermediary steps that make the economy better and that reduce the power of the Federal Reserve and reduce the power of bank regulators? Should we not argue, for example, to get rid of Dodd-Frank? If you get rid of Dodd-Frank, the regulation, Dodd-Frank, not as an end in itself, the end in itself is a separation of state from banking, but as a step towards that direction. And should we be willing to form coalitions with other people to get rid of Dodd-Frank? And I think the answer is pretty clear that yes, we should do that. You're not going to get even if even if you had an objectivist political party get elected, it couldn't, from one day to the next, get rid of all regulations on banking and get rid of the Fed. It would take a process. I think to completely unwind all of government programs, including Social Security and Medicare and all of it, and education and the whole bunch, welfare, everything, it would probably take 20 years. Yeah, probably 20 years. 4-year terms. I mean, you'd make a lot of progress in the first few years, and then there'd be a trail of things that would have to be phased out over time. Does that make me an incrementalist? Because I don't want everything done day one because that would be a disaster. It would be unfair and wrong and unjust. Does it make Ayn Rand an incrementalist to argue that taxes should be lower because she's not arguing that it should be zero? Does it make any of us incrementalists to argue for lowering regulations and eliminating regulations when the target should be zero regulations, but right now we want these regulations eliminated or reduced? Are we going to go to zero regulations on banking? Can we advocate for some regulation to go away on banking? Absolutely. If there was a proposal to voucherize Medicare, would I support it in the context of I want to get rid of Medicare completely? Yes. Voucherization is a good step in that direction, even if the people who are voucherizing don't intend that to be the outcome in the end. We could argue for it with the intent of ultimately eliminating Medicare, but a step could be vouchers. It'd make healthcare in the United States much, much better. It would make it quasi-private in terms of the decision-making people make. And it would be a massive improvement in what we have today. And the quality of the healthcare is a life or death. And if we can improve healthcare right now, then it's life or death. Why wouldn't we want to do that? With the explicit goal of getting government completely out of healthcare. So if the step is towards more freedom, more liberty, then we should take it. And we should support it. And we should advocate for it. Always in the context of, we want to get rid of healthcare completely. We want to give government intervention completely. So it is ridiculous to argue that you shouldn't argue for increments. Ayn Rand was a huge advocate for increments. She did not argue you get rid of all government intervention like that. Quite the contrary. She explained that it would take time and it would have to be phased out. This is not an issue of giving up on separation of state from anything. It's a recognition that in order to get to that separation, you're going to have to get steps. And in the meantime, if you can move towards even a little bit more freedom, which allows for better healthcare or better education, it would be criminal not to do that. We're talking about kids' minds, just like in healthcare, you're talking about people's lives. Why would you not want to improve their lives in the meantime, as you work towards ultimately getting government completely out of healthcare? And if the move is towards more liberty, not towards more government control. Now, I believe that some, not all, of the school choice options are a move towards more freedom. They're not the ultimate move. They're not what we ultimately want. They're imperfect. They still include government funding of stuff. But I think government funding of healthcare or education or a bunch of different things is significantly better and a move towards liberty if government at the same time gives up control, i.e. regulation of those things. So voucherizing Medicare and allowing seniors to buy insurance with the voucher rather than the government giving them insurance directly is a far better solution and a more liberty-oriented solution, even if the government is still subsidizing it. even if it's still paying for it. And I think the same is education. I think actually some kind of education saving accounts is the way to transition from where we are today to complete separation of state from education. You put the money in the account, maybe to begin with, it's $12,000. And then you say, every 2 years, we cut it by 1,000. And you have to fund it yourself. And that gives you time to prepare, gives you time to save. And in the meantime, hopefully, public education is destroyed. Government education is destroyed. I don't understand any move that we can take that is even an incremental move towards more liberty that is likely to destroy teachers' unions is a massive win. Now, what is the risk? The risk is that some of the voucher systems, not all of them, but some of the voucher systems, require the state to regulate the private schools. So now the fear is that not only will the government have control over state schools, over government schools, they will now have control over private schools. And right now, without vouchers and without all that, private schools are not regulated by government. At least that's the argument. Whether they are not, from everything I hear, they're quite regulated already without even the vouchers. So the idea is that private schools will become less free because of the vouchers. And if the system is that, then that should be fought. That should be argued against. We should promote, at least as an incremental step towards complete separation of state from education, we should promote a system in which, and this is the original education saving account was structured this way, in which parents get a sum of money, the equivalent of what the state was paying for their public schools, to spend as they wish on educational content. And the state has no additional power to regulate schools. And if the state starts taking additional power to regulate private schools, then that's what we should fight. So, by advocating as an interim step, giving parents choices, and fighting whatever attempts the state engages in regulating private schools, and then once that's established, once you destroy the teachers' union, once parents and people discover that private schools are much better run and do a lot better job, then you can launch a campaign to completely separate, to shut down every department of education in every state, in every county, in every school board, in every place. Schools should be sold, or just shut down. All of them. All the government schools and all the government departments of education should be shut down everywhere. And we should continuously argue for that, including now, including as we argue for school choice. We should tell them, our ultimate goal is to shut them all down. And, so yes, it's incrementalism with a clear goal of where we're heading, just like it would be incrementalism to argue that, bank regulations need to be reduced with the goal of eliminating them completely. Just like it's okay to argue that, government should tax less, even when the goal is to eliminate taxation completely. That the Federal Reserve, I argue in the show, the Federal Reserve should remain independent, even though my real goal is to get rid of the Federal Reserve. But if we have a Federal Reserve, and we do, it's better to be independent than not. If we have government intervention in education, then I'd rather parents have choice than not. As we continue to argue, the government should have no role in education. So I don't understand this perspective that says you have to argue for everything and nothing less. I think that's, Ayn Rand didn't hold that position. And I don't understand. Now, if school choice, certain school choice programs hurt private schools, those should be attacked. Those should be argued against. I'm not for school choice as a blanket. I'm for the school choice programs that are creating real competition, that are encouraging new private schools, and they're providing real choices to parents. I just think that the government funding it is the least evil as compared to the government actually running the schools. Government funding is a lot less evil than government running the schools. Now, government funding, the best way to do the government funding is just to give it to the parents. Set up an account, put the money in the account, and let parents decide how to use it. Anyway, yes, in every field in which I think government should be downsized, pretty much everywhere, I think we need to do it incrementally with the goal of elimination completely, or in the case of the Pentagon, a reduction to the necessary force necessary for defending the United States. All right. Hopefully that is clarifying. I'm still going to get people attacking. I don't think that satisfied anybody who was attacking me. Expect to see more Twitter stuff, attacking this position. All right. Let's see. Remind everybody, yes, Super Chat. Super Chat's a great way for you to support the show. It's a viewer-supported show, and it's a great way to shape the show by suggesting topics. Everything, every question you ask on the Super Chat, including you can ask about this, I answer. The more money you put in it, the higher priority, and potentially the longer the answer I give. All right, put your money where your mouth is. Let's see. Yes, Putin and Trump may be buddies again. They're going to meet. They're going to meet in the wonderful place in the United Arab Emirates. They're going to have a summit. They're going to meet one-on-one, Putin and Trump. They both announced it. I guess the Russians announced it. I guess the U.S. asked for this after Witkoff's 3-hour meeting yesterday with Putin. Coming out of that meeting was an agreement to have a we'll now to have this meeting. So all right. Now, what to make of this? Well, I take this as Putin's really smart. Putin knows he can manipulate Trump. Putin knows that anytime they talk, and particularly if they're in private, he is just better than Trump. He's just smarter than Trump. He knows exactly what he wants. Trump has no clue. And he's a better negotiator than Trump. I think Putin believes that if he meets Trump one-on-one, he can fool Trump into thinking or fool Trump into believing whatever it is that Putin wants him to believe, that he will get what he wants from Trump, that Trump likes Putin, respects Putin, maybe even admires Putin. He does not like or respect Zelensky. I think Putin realizes that Trump's politics are very personal, that a lot of this stuff he decides is based on his emotion or his emotional connection to particular people. And Putin, is going to exploit that. And my expectation is that out of this meeting, you get a much weaker support for Ukraine. Remember, this is coming, tomorrow is the deadline by which the United States is supposed to put massive tariffs on countries that are basically importing using Russian oil. Now, we'll see what happens tomorrow if those tariffs are put in place. But so Trump was getting tough on Russia. And this is a way for Putin to diffuse all that, to eliminate that and to get Trump back on his side. I think he feels like he he lost Trump somewhere in the muddle, that the pro-Ukraine side within the American administration got an upper hand, and now he wants to to recapture Trump, and I think he will. I think he will. Somebody says I underestimate Trump's intelligence. I wish. I wish. I don't think that's indeed the case. I think you guys way overestimate Trump's intelligence and Trump's everything else. Trump has already called up European leaders and let him know that he's going to hold these talks. He is hoping, Trump says, to have a trilateral meeting with Zelensky as a follow-up. Putin has already said he has no interest in meeting Zelensky. So again, Putin is going to set the terms of this. Putin is going to dictate what actually happens. We will see. No U.S. president has met, or Biden didn't meet with Putin since the invasion. The last time an American president met with Putin was before the invasion, when Biden met with him. The idea that these two people meeting is a good thing. There's nothing good about this. Nothing good can come out of this. This is basically capitulating in the end to Putin. He wants to be brought back into, global leadership, and meeting with Trump symbolizes that. He wants to project within Russia that he is taken seriously by global leaders, and I think meeting with Trump suggests that. Trump has nothing to gain here and everything to lose. There's zero to gain for the United States or for Trump from meeting with Putin. The only thing Trump should be doing right now is arming Ukraine to the teeth. That is it. That's all that's needed. And then see what happens. Play it out. And look, when Trump met with Putin in his first term, he looked pathetic. So I might underestimate Trump's intelligence, but he looked pathetic. India is buying Russian oil because it's cheap. It's getting it way below market prices. And it has no stake in Europe. It has no conflict with Russia. I think it's a mistake for them to buy Russian oil, but it's completely understandable that they're buying Russian oil. Why are we using these stupid tactics? Sanctions don't work. We've had sanctions in Iran since 1979. We've had sanctions in North Korea for decades. If either one of those regimes changed, if either one of those regimes, moderated, if either one of those regimes become less of a threat, sanctions are not a solution. The solution is allowing Ukraine to fight. That's a solution. Giving Ukraine the tools to actually kick the Russians out, or at least make it so painful, continue to make it unbelievably painful for the Russians. Now, it could be that even then Russia will win, but okay, so Russia wins. But sanction India, tariffs on India, which means taxes on Americans because India is importing oil from Russia. If India doesn't import oil from Russia, other countries will. South Africa will, Brazil will, Argentina will go around the world. Maybe Argentina wouldn't, but other countries will go around the world sanctioning everybody. Economic sanctions don't win wars. Economic sanctions don't change regimes. Economic sanctions don't achieve the goals that are set in advance. They never have. Has Venezuela changed because of our economic sanctions on them? As Cuba? And now Venezuela and Cuba, I don't know why we have economic sanctions on them, even though I'm sure Cuba buys Russian oil. So no, economic sanctions is not the preferred method. The preferred method is to arm the people who are willing to fight them. All right. So yes, all these countries buying oil from Russia helps the Russian war machine. Absolutely. Okay. There's nothing you can do about that. You want to go around sinking every Russian ship that leaves a Russian harbor? That's war with Russia. So the alternative is, Russia's building a pipeline. It could build a pipeline, to China and basically export all its oil to China. Is that a solution? The solution is to defeat them. The solution isn't to play games at the margins. The solution is not sanctions. Never was. Sanctions is a weak card. What you want is to win wars. And you've got a proxy fighting a war for you. Now, rumor has it that the United States has already offered Russia a pretty favorable deal, and that's why Putin is willing to meet. There's a Polish outlet on it, claims to have the proposal that Witkoff gave to Putin. Now, I don't know if this is true or not. I wouldn't be shocked if it was. Here's the proposal. A ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine, but not a peace treaty. De facto recognition of Russia's territorial sieges, so everything they've captured to date, with the issue of actual annexation or actual international recognition postponed for 49 or even 99 years. You can tell this is a real estate. You lease it for 49 years. Lifting most Western sanctions against Moscow. A return to importing Russian gas and oil in the long term. No guarantees on halting NATO expansion. No promise to stop military aid to Ukraine. So that's the deal on the table. I mean, it's a horrible deal. It's one of these deals that kicks the can down the road. We're going to kind of recognize maybe Russia for 49 years, and what prevents Putin's successor in 10 years from invading Ukraine again? From now more advantageous positions, and after 10 years of rearming. I mean, this is basically a sanction of Russia's war and a recognition of its, quote, achievements, territorial gains. And then if you lift sanctions, all the sanctions, and you start importing natural gas into Europe, then let's fund the Russian war machine so that they can become more ambitious and maybe go after NATO next. And then no guarantee on halting NATO expansion. I mean, this deal would be, somewhat acceptable, still a bad deal, if, as part of the deal, Ukraine became a NATO member. And then at least you got the idea that in 10 years, invading Ukraine, further war with Ukraine, would invoke Article 5 and NATO would be at war with Russia. And instead of no promise to stop military aid to Ukraine, how about providing massive military aid to Ukraine, be part of the deal? All right. So, oops, what am I doing? So Trump is going to meet with Putin. We will see what, where this goes, and exactly what happens. But it is, I predict that nothing good will come of this. That it is a disaster. That Putin will run circles around Trump, and if this is the outline of a deal, then Ukraine should be panicking, Europe should be panicking, anybody who values freedom and liberty, anybody who is worried about Russia's expansionism should be really, really worried. This is really bad news for anybody who loves liberty. All right, more talk about tariffs. You just can't get away from them. Well, today was the day that basically tariffs went into effect, the reciprocal tariffs, the high rates of tariffs. So we'll see what impact these tariffs have on the U.S. economy, on prices, on employment, in the U.S. Over the next few months. We will see what happens. In the meantime, we know that, for example, the auto industry has taken a $12 billion hit from the trade war. That's the American auto industry. They're raising prices, ideally, global auto companies will move production to the United States, but that's not easy, and it's not clear that they have employees in the United States for it, or that there's enough demand for it in the United States. But generally, the auto industry, I think this is not, this is global, so this is not just US. Globally, auto industry globally has taken a $12 billion hit. Other industries have taken hits. The steel using industry in the United States has taken a massive hit. And of course, importers and small businesses, it mainly hurts small businesses in the United States. Some people are still holding on to this idea that Trump tariffs are there as a negotiating chip in order to get other countries to lower their trade barriers to the United States and basically ultimately secure free trade, zero tariffs in both directions. But that is obviously not the case. And you can see this is a good example with the 39% tariff on Switzerland. The president of Switzerland, as we know, as we talked about yesterday, came to the United States to grovel and to really beg and to ask and to discuss and to debate and he was told, no way, you still get 39%. In spite of the fact that last year, Switzerland unilaterally eliminated all tariffs on imported industrial goods. So Switzerland has zero tariffs on all industrial goods. Now, maybe they still have tariffs on other things on services, but in industrial goods, it's zero. And yet, they got hit with a 39% tariff, not his regular 15, not the real good one, 10%, and not the, like in Japan, another 20%. No, 39%. Why? Trade deficit. Doesn't like Switzerland. Doesn't like their chocolate. I don't know, got lobbied by the chocolate industry in the United States. See's Candy really came after him. I have no idea. But the bottom line is that Switzerland, in spite of the fact that it charges no tariffs on U.S. imported industrial goods, is being charged 39% on goods coming to the United States. It's not being charged. Our consumers are being charged, and therefore they won't buy Swiss stuff. Who's going to buy a Swiss watch for 39% premium? It's just not happening. Who's going to buy Swiss chocolate if it's 39% more expensive than other chocolate? So, U.S. consumption of Swiss goods is going to drop dramatically. Luckily, pharmaceuticals is excluded for now. Trump has a whole new set of tariffs he wants for pharmaceuticals that is going to go up to 250%. So we might not be able to buy Swiss pharmaceuticals soon, and some of the biggest companies in the world produce pharmaceuticals in Switzerland. And so this has nothing to do with reciprocity. This has nothing to do with trying to achieve zero tariffs. This is all, camouflage. This is all pretense to get some of you who are naive roped into the tariff gig. But this is about as anti-free trade as possible. Trump is a mercantilist. He does not believe in free trade. He does not believe in Adam Smith's free trade. He does not believe in comparative advantage. There's no way you can square this circle. This is what Trump is and has always been. All right, let me just see a few things here. Yeah, we'll do that. I want to do that. All right, so one of the things that the tariffs do achieve is, everybody, like the Swiss president, are coming to Trump and groveling or begging or just being nice to him. Usually they're not very nice to him. And he's getting a lot of attention, just broadly. He's getting a lot of attention from industry. He's got a lot of attention from foreign leaders. And he enjoys this. He enjoys being the center of attention. He's a narcissist. He enjoys the attention. He enjoys the groveling. He enjoys industry leaders, we'll get to that in a minute, coming to the White House and coming to him in Mar-a-Lago or wherever and asking for favors. He enjoys giving those favors. He enjoys the exclusions and the exemptions, which he's given to lots of countries and lots of products. Well, we have set tariffs on, lots of exemptions and exclusions, all based on what? Based on Trump's whim, based on whatever Trump feels like. So today, all those tariffs went into effect, and one country whose tariffs have not really changed is Mexico. Mexico got a 90-day extension. It's the only country that got a 90-day extension. I mean, China is the other one where they're still negotiating. And, and basically what's happened is that Claudia Sheinbaum, who's probably a terrible president for Mexico, has done actually a good job in, what would you call it, cultivating, manipulating, dealing with, negotiating with Trump. She's given him enough of what he wants without giving him too much to make unpopular at home. She has bobbed and weaved and pleased him and been strong on some things and given to other things. But note that it's all arbitrary and subjective. I mean, by all accounts, she's done a masterful job. She hasn't got excited. She hasn't threatened Trump in America. She hasn't talked about tariffs on American goods. She's kept her cool, unlike Canada, who flipped out, who went crazy. She's kept her cool. She talks to him on the phone all the time. They've never met. She talks to him on the phone all the time. Maybe it's because she's a woman. I don't know. I mean, in terms of Trump, right? Trump's relationship with women. But she has managed to just keep him at bay. Maybe Mexico just has more lobbyists in Washington. Maybe they just have more influence. Certainly, there are a lot of people in the Mexican government who have a lot of dealings with the United States. She also, I think she knows how to talk to Trump. I think that's the bottom line. She knows how to talk to him. You know, when Trump renamed the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, she could have flipped out over that. And she just didn't pay attention to it. She didn't make a big deal out of it. Right? And, Trump calling Mexico, Canada the 51st state, the Canadian went nuts. They could not keep their cool. So this is about relationships. This is about how you deal with stuff. It has nothing to do with economics. It has nothing to do with the national interest, whatever that is. It has nothing to do with what's good for you, American citizens, those of you American citizens. It's got everything to do with Trump's ego, Trump's mood, Trump's emotions, other foreign leaders, how they deal with him. It's arbitrary, it's whimsical. It doesn't even have the pretense of having some kind of strategy or anything like that. She's put troops on the Mexican border, but she knew that America was putting troops on its border. So immigrants were not coming anyway, so it wouldn't be that tough a job to stop migration through Mexico for her because the United States was taking care of it as well. She claims to be trying to stop fentanyl smuggling into the United States. I haven't seen any stats that suggest that there's less fentanyl coming into the U.S., but she's done the kind of things. Canada tried to do that as well, put more troops on the border and all of that. Didn't appease him. She obviously some way knows how to do it. She's disciplined. She knows what her message is. She knows what she wants, and she knows how to deal with Trump. So, and she doesn't respond to every stupid thing he says, or to any of the stupid things he says. She doesn't make it a public airing and a public fight. That's how you do it, I guess. Okay, Trump also announced today that he will be imposing 100% tariffs on microprocessors imported into the United States from companies that do not produce some chips in the US. So Trump here is doubling up on the CHIP Act, right? The CHIP Act was the act that subsidized TSMC and Samsung and Intel and a bunch of other chip companies to make chips in the US. So TSMC is not going to have the 100% tariff because it already makes some chips in the US. So even chips coming from Taiwan will not be tariffed. Chips from Samsung will not be tariffed. However, chips coming from Japan are all going to be tariffed, 100%. You've just taken a sledgehammer to Japanese chips, microprocessors, into competition. And there's certain areas in which the Japanese dominate. Like we import a lot of the chips that go into cars, for example, come from Japanese companies. Not the high-end chips, right? The low and medium-end chips. Whereas the very high-end chips come primarily from TSMC, some from Samsung, also SK Hynix, which is also has a chip company, a chip manufacturing plant in the United States, also is exempt. Also is exempt. Now, why did he do this? Why did he do this? I mean, this is great for TSMC and Samsung, by the way. Trump just destroyed their Japanese competitors. I mean, indeed, Tokyo Electron chip manufacturer it fell 5%. Its stock price fell 5% when this was announced. Other Japanese chip stocks, declined by 4%, 3.3%. Why did he do this? Well, one, they're producing in the U.S., so they must be the good guys. Those companies that are not producing in the U.S., they're not the good guys, and this is an incentive for them to come and produce in the U.S., disregarding the cost of doing so. And the fact that TSMC produces very little in the U.S., Samsung produces very little in the U.S., and so on. And they don't produce the most advanced chips here. And of course, they only did it, or they partially did it, because they got a heavy subsidy from the Biden administration. So this is, again, where Trump is supporting the Biden administration's subsidies of the chip industry. There's no difference between the political parties when it comes to subsidizing industry. So this is interesting. Well, one of the reasons might be, right, that Apple uses chips from TSMC and Samsung. And Trump does not want to hurt Apple. Does not want to hurt Apple. Apple also keeps saying they're going to invest more in the U.S. They just upped it from $500 billion to $600 billion to appease Trump. It's not clear that they weren't going to make those investments anyway. But to appease Trump, they just increased it to $600 billion. And then today, in the White House, Trump got a gift. I mean, this is cringe. You see Tim Cook in the White House giving President Trump this engraved piece of glass on a gold, supposedly solid gold base. The glass is the kind of glass that, Apple is committing to buying in the U.S., I guess. This is kind of the solid glass, but there's a nice, a gold plate at the bottom. The glass sits on the gold thing. I know Peter Schiff writes that if it's set on a 24-karat gold base, he says if the base is solid gold and weighs, let's say, 20 pounds, which it looks reasonable that that's what it weighs, it's worth $1 million. That's not bad. That is not a bad price to pay for tariff relief on semiconductors. Not bad. Not bad. So we know why they're exempt, all the companies that supply Apple were exempt. And it just happens that today, the same day that he announced these tariffs, Tim Scott was in the Oval Office presenting Trump with this engraved glass thingy, which, you know, constitutes a nice little bribe. A nice little bribe. 24 karat gold. I mean, somebody says in Twitter, somebody wrote, this feels like something you do for Kim Jong-un to avoid having your family fed to the pigs. I guess that's where we are now. And I think that's right. That's quite an accurate sentiment. Apple is completely kissing Trump's ass. They are flattering him, they are bribing him, they are giving him gifts, because that's how you survive in the new economy. There's that quote from Atlas Shrugged, from Galt's speech, about you know, when you have to ask for permission, when you have to go grovel before these guys, the people like Donald Trump, in order to do business. You know, what kind of a culture, what kind of a world is that? And I've never seen, no, I don't think it's ever happened, that an American president be so obvious, so explicit about this, yeah, it's pretty stunning. The base is American-made gold. It comes from Utah, from a mine in Utah. This is not imported gold, so don't worry, and it's not going to be tariffed. And it's pure gold. Yeah, don't know what Steve Jobs is thinking about all of this right now, to see Apple in this kind of position. But, you know, that's why Tim Cook is probably the ideal CEO for this era. But it's sad. Tim Cook's a great businessman. You have to give him credit. What he's done for Apple is amazing. He's a great businessman, and it's sad to see him like this, to see him being brought down to the level of having to bribe the president so he can continue to do business. All right, let me just mention Super Chat again. I know we still haven't finished our topics, but I am a little concerned here because we are approaching the 1 hour mark. And we haven't yet made the 1 hour goal, and we're pretty far away from it. So I just want to mention that and encourage you to ask questions, to use the Super Chat, ask questions, or do a sticker to support the show. That would also be appreciated. And yeah, this is a watcher, listener supported show. Couldn't exist without you. So please consider supporting the show by using a sticker or by asking a Super Chat. As I say, I read all the Super Chats. Even when they're combative, even when their comments disagree with me, use that as a way to get on air, shape the show. All right, let's see. I wanted to say a few more things about the Jones Act. I got an email I got a message from where is it? From Colin Grabow, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, probably not, who runs the Center for Trade Policy Studies at Cato, giving you a little bit more color on what happened when the Jones Act was passed. I got actually 2 emails about this. This is one, and I'll get to the second one in a minute. And while he didn't disagree with me about the context in which the Jones Act was passed in 1920, he wanted to make the case that there was a little bit more going on than just national security. Even then, certainly there's no national security. Emails about this. This is one, and I'll get to the second one. Any need for legislation. The power to undertake huge construction programs. The problem was not one Accordingly, Congress set out to repeal the emergency war measures and to establish standards to guide the shipping board in the task of selling the vessels. Practically no one in Congress ventured to suggest that it might be desirable for the government to retain ownership of the fleet. So the House voted in 1919 to 240 to 8. They passed a bill designed to repeal the emergency legislation and basically to sell off the fleet that had been put together. The measure then went to the Senate Committee of Commerce, which again was in control of the Republicans as a result of the elections of 1918. Under the leadership of Senator Wesley Jones of the Jones Act of Washington State, this committee decided that the time was ripe for enactment of legislation which would foster and promote a privately owned American merchant marine. At the instigation of private shipping of private shipping interests, the committee rewrote the bill to provide for a thorough revision of the shipping board and for the reestablishment of discrimination against foreign shipping. The revised bill, one of the most important measures on shipping ever brought before Congress, received practically no debate in the Senate and passed without a record vote. Some opposition to the revised measure developed in the House, but the rush for adjournment prevented any intelligent consideration of the bill by the lower chamber. A conference committee reported, which embodied most of the provisions of the Senate bill, was adopted by a vote of 145 to 120. Most of the representatives voted in blind support of the party leaders, and it is extremely doubtful whether 50 members of the House appreciated the nature of the bill which they were making law of the land. In the singular fashion was born the amazing Merchant Marine Act of 1920. Its real parent were not the Senate and the House of Representatives, but rather the Senate Commerce Committee and the shipping lobby. And Jones. And Jones. So let me just see. This is a 1938 book, American Shipping Policy. You can actually, oops. Why won't it show it? All right, and it was written by, let's see, American Shipping Policy by Paul Zeiss, Z-E-I-S, right? And then, you know, to add to that, you know, one of the, we got internet problems, guys? Anybody having internet problems? Got some buffering, frozen, the air conditioning turned on, even wired internet isn't reliable in Europe. Yeah, I don't know. Back, is it back? Everybody back? Let's see, let me just check my connection, 1 second. Let's do this. Okay, let me know if I'm still on. I didn't notice that there were some problems. I apologize. Hopefully all of that got recorded and was on there. Sound problems, in and out. The sound is in and out. Right, and, just asking again, you guys having problems? Let me know. Everything was good earlier. Just did, it's over now, it's better now, it's okay now. Back, everything's good. Did just reopened. All right. All right, I also want to point out that it's not an accident that Jones was from the state of Washington. This is a time where there was a lot of exports going from Washington State, a lot of shipping going from Washington State to Alaska and from Alaska to Washington State. And because of previous restrictions on shipping in the United States, what was happening was a lot of the material that was being shipped to Alaska was actually being taken by train into Canada and then shipped from Canada to Alaska. And the shipping interests in Washington, D.C., in Washington State, in Seattle specifically, were unhappy by that fact. And therefore, they demanded that the Jones Act be included in the Merchant Marine segment that prohibited, here's some of the language, no merchandise should be transported by water or by land, or by land and water, under penalty of forfeiture thereupon, from one point in the United States to any other point in the United States, including any territory, district, or possession thereof. So you couldn't ship it to Canada and then ship from Canada to Alaska. You had to ship it from America to Alaska. But now you could only do it on American-owned, American-built, American-manned, American-flagged ships. So this was a huge, this is an example of cronyism in the early part of the 20th century. I will note, and you should note, and it was mentioned earlier, that Jones was a Republican. So this again goes to the falsehood that, or the false claim that Republicans have somehow always been the party of free markets. They have not. Republicans have been the party of tariffs. They've been the party of antitrust. They're the party of the Jones Act. They're the party of anti-immigration. 1924 Anti-Immigration Act passed by the Coolidge administration. So, and somebody pointed out a third thing, bad thing. The third bad thing that Coolidge did was, that Iran mentioned, was the airwaves, was the whole program around establishing the Federal Communication Commission that regulated the airwaves, that leased the airwaves, granted airway licenses instead of selling the airwaves. All of that was under Republican. So it's pretty clear that points in the the Jones Act was something that was lobbied heavily by local shippers in Seattle in a period where, and note that the act says territories, not just states, because Alaska was a territory, it wasn't yet a state, and they were concerned about shipping between Seattle and Alaska. Today, and this is the pressure group politics. Once you get a mixed economy, this is what happens. Today, the people who lobby for this are the Jones Act owners of the ships, the union that represents the people who work on these ships, and that's pretty much it. Those are the only interests. But the interests that are opposed to it are not concentrated enough, do not put enough energy into going after the Jones Act. But it's one of the dumbest pieces of legislation out there. But here's some good news. I got this email from Larry Salzman. Larry Salzman at the Pacific Legal Foundation, right? Pacific Legal Foundation. He let me know that the Pacific Legal Foundation is actually suing the U.S. government over the Jones Act. That they are arguing that the Jones Act goes against the Constitution. So here's a passage out of an article published by the Pacific Legal Foundation. The Jones Act isn't just bad for business, it's illegal. The Constitution's Port Preference Clause prohibits Congress from favoring ports of one state over those of another to ensure equal treatment in interstate commerce. The Jones Act, however, was specifically designed to disadvantage Hawaii and Alaska, then territories, despite strong opposition to the law's discriminatory effects from Hawaiian and Alaskan officials. Despite many attempts to repeal or reform the Jones Act, including the recent Open American Waters Act, powerful entrenched interests maintain this protectionist scheme. So the Pacific Legal Foundation, on behalf of the Kaloa Rum Company, are suing the U.S. government to repeal and get rid of the Jones Act. So that's good news. Pacific Legal Foundation does amazing, amazing work. Wow, we've gone an hour already, and we've still got a bunch of stuff to talk about. Yeah, let me just do this. Yeah, if you guys could tweet and share with people that we are on live right now. I mean, the reality is that because my schedule keeps shifting around, I think fewer people tuning into the live show. I haven't seen any dip in the non-live, but at least the live show, we've seen a little dip, and I think that has to do with the fact that the schedule has been so erratic. So if you could go on Twitter right now, if you're listening live right now, and tweet that we're on live now, that'd be great. Just let people know that the show is on. Those of you who want to ask questions, please consider doing $20 questions. We're way behind the goal, and to catch up even a little bit is going to require some 50, 20s, 100s, and stuff like that. So value for value, please consider doing that. If you want to do a sticker, do any amount. Stickers, just any amount you want, any amount you can afford, any amount you estimate is a reflection of the value that the show provides. All right, RFK, our central planner in chief of all healthcare, announced today that the government will withdraw funds and stop funding all mRNA vaccine programs. According to RFK, after reviewing the science, HHS has determined that mRNA technology poses more risks than benefits for these respiratory viruses, and they have begun the process of terminating 22 contracts. 22 contracts. Now, this is insane. mRNA vaccines are a platform for the design of vaccines for respiratory viruses, the like we have never seen before. Traditional ways of designing vaccines take years to get approval on, get years to develop and approve. mRNA during COVID was done in a weekend to actually design it, and shots were already being made 9 months later. I mean, this is one of the great achievements of the 21st century, is mRNA vaccines. And that was just, in an emergency situation, rushed. Imagine what these vaccines are capable of if we actually give them the time to develop properly. All right, one second. Are we freezing up again, or is the picture okay? So imagine, if we had a bird flu epidemic, which is not crazy. Clearly, the birds are dying from the bird flu. Could it jump to humans? I mean, scientists think that the possibility is greater than zero. And yet, our best prospects for vaccine against bird flu, when it arrives in the human population, are mRNA vaccines. And indeed, the risks, the dangers, have been shown to be minimal. Yes, some young people who got the vaccine got heart palpitations, arrhythmia, mitochondria, whatever it's called, myocardosis. You get that from COVID as well. But yes, they got it from the vaccine. Almost nobody died from it. And yet the vaccine saved the lives of many, many people. Now, the vaccine was given to too many people. Young people, in my view, shouldn't have gotten the vaccine. All of that is true. You learn, you do it better next time. And we should have a real analysis of the evils that were done during COVID. But to wipe out the whole technology is just stupid and evil and insane and ridiculous. I mean, this is his anti-vax insanity. And so today, so today Trump was asked, right, a reporter asks him at the White House, he says, "You were the driving force behind Operation Warp Speed, the mRNA vaccines that are the gold standard. Your health secretary is pulling back on all the funding for research into mRNA vaccines. He is saying that the risks outweigh the benefits, which puts him at odds with the entire medical community and you." Trump says, "Research on what?" Reporter says, "mRNA vaccines." I mean, he doesn't have good listening comprehension. And this is what he says. "We're going to look at that. Operation Warp Speed, whether you are Republican or Democrat, considered one of the most incredible things ever done in this country. We are looking at other answers to other problems, other sicknesses and diseases, and I think we're doing really well." In other words, he doesn't know what she's talking about. He doesn't know what RFK has done. I don't know that he cares. But RFK has basically said, that one really good achievement that Trump had during his first term, Warp Speed, no, that was a disaster. That was really, really bad. And we're getting rid of that. So when we have the bird flu, we have a bird flu, and there are no mRNA vaccines, and people are scrambling. By the way, many of these 22 programs to develop mRNA vaccines are trying to develop mRNA vaccines for anticipated bird flus. So this would be something that would be on hold, would be ready to deal with a future pandemic. And RFK has just wiped all that out. And of course, researchers are using mRNA vaccines for cancer research, which this does not affect, are panicking because they expect that'll be the next shoe. mRNA vaccines have shown amazing, amazing success and progress in dealing with cancer. There is real chances that you could use mRNA vaccines on a variety of different cancer that can eliminate the cancer without all the side effects of chemo and of current treatments. And there is real fear in the medical community that RFK is going to stop all the research into those as well. Well, anyway, this is the government you guys elected. It is just, yeah. I don't know how, what's his name, how the senator from Louisiana, Bob Casey, I think his name is, the doctor, how he lives with himself. He could have been the deciding vote to not approve Kennedy as HSS director, and he voted for him. And how a doctor sleeps at night knowing the damage that RFK is doing at HSS, I do not know. I do not know. All right, just one other, I've got satellites. One other thing that the Trump administration is ending, there are 2 satellites that basically NASA runs, that are run by the US government, that are up in space, and they provide data on CO2. And you say, well, I mean, who cares, right? We're not big promoters of, we don't think climate change is that catastrophic. And, if you, as we said yesterday about data, if you accumulate data, you try to micromanage then behavior in order to adjust the data. But the reality is that the data from these 2 satellites is data that is used by farmers all over the United States to determine crop health, and other aspects. It's also used, the data is also used by the oil and gas companies and other companies, and of course by scientists. And the Trump administration today has ordered both of them be, in a sense, decommissioned. One is going to just allow it to burn out, and the other one, the instruments measuring this stuff are going to be turned off, and they're not going to provide the data, because if there's no data, there's nothing to worry about. And now, I have no problem with not worrying about, climate change too much. But if this is actually useful to companies and farmers, if this is actually useful for other purposes, why not sell the satellites? Why not find other solutions and how to get rid of these satellites. Government shouldn't own satellites except for spying. So I'm all for the government getting rid of these satellites. But it just seems like destroying a couple of satellites because you don't like the data, you don't want the data. These other things could be done other than destroying them, privatize them, sell them. Part of what they're doing is monitoring plant growth. One of the ways in which we know that CO2 emissions are actually really helpful to life on planet Earth is because we're seeing a lot more plant growth on the planet, and we know that from these satellites. So that's going to be taken away. It's just this whole antagonism to science and data and information and knowledge, which this administration exhibits, that it's just horrifying. It's just very, very, very horrifying. All right, let's talk quickly about Gaza and some developments about Gaza and some developments about Hezbollah. Two important, I think, both important developments. So we talked yesterday about the fact that the Israeli government has probably decided to occupy the entirety of Gaza, and this is the plan that was probably been approved by the Netanyahu government. There's no official statement, but this is what Israeli media seems to be reporting. That the Israeli military will tell the residents of Gaza City, the city of Gaza, in the center of Gaza, to evacuate. There are somewhere between 800,000 and 1 million people in the city of Gaza that will now have to evacuate. So this order of evacuation will be done over the next few weeks and potentially months as Israel builds areas for these civilians to move from. So tent cities, hospitals, aid distribution sites will be built in order to make it possible for all these evacuees from the city of Gaza to move to. Now, the city of Gaza is symbolic. Sadly, while parts of it were occupied by Israel in different phases of this war over the last 2 years, it has not been occupied in a totality. Hamas has been running the place, and it is a stronghold of Hamas. So the symbolism of Israel occupying it and kicking out all the people who live there, I think is important for Israel in terms of giving the Palestinians, the Gazans, a full sense of defeat and taking away a power base from Hamas. So it's an essential element in the defeat of Hamas. So step one, evacuate. Step two, conquer. Take over the entire city, and that'll mean fighting the Hamas elements that are there and blowing up more tunnels and going into more tunnels. This does put in danger any hostages that might be in Gaza City. I think the Israeli intelligence believes that most of the hostages are not there. They're in other places. And that the hostages that are there, they believe Hamas will move before Israel enters. They won't be killed, they will be moved. The United States supposedly has agreed to fund a huge expansion of aid, of food aid to the Palestinians, an expansion of the number of locations in which aid will be distributed from 4 to 16, and something like $1 billion to feed the Palestinians in Gaza. Just in case you were wondering where all the foreign aid was going, now you can feel comforted that it's going to feed the Palestinians, the Palestinian population of Gaza that committed the atrocities of October 7th. So we're going to see more aid. Israel will take over the city of Gaza and then reevaluate at that point. At that point, there'll still be parts of the Gaza Strip that are not occupied by Israel. Those will probably be where the hostages are being kept. Israel at that point will continue to intensify the pressure on Hamas to release the hostages, to try to cut a deal with Hamas to surrender and to leave the Gaza Strip. But, it's not clear what happens in phase two. Now, this has all been supposedly decided in the last day or so by the Israeli government after having intense discussions internally. There was a lot of press yesterday about the fact that the senior generals in the Israeli military objected to the plan, and they did not want to occupy Gaza. They did not want to take occupation of the entire Gaza Strip. There was disagreement between the generals, and then there was disagreement between the generals and the political staff. And today, I think a number of the generals in the Israeli military made some, I think, really good observations that are, I think, worth repeating and give you a sense of how the Israeli military functions, maybe differently than other militaries. A number of Israeli generals, I think the head of the Southern Command and the head of the Joint Command, have said, look, we're an army where disagreement is okay. We encourage it. We encourage people to challenge. We do not function by follow orders and shut up. We want people to question. We want people to make suggestions. We want people to challenge. We want people to say, no, there's a better way, or no, that shouldn't be done, or no, that cannot be done. And that is also true in the relationship between the military and the civilian leadership. There is constant debate and dialogue. Israel, indeed, is a culture of debate, disagreement, argumentation. And, the military officials said, this is healthy. This is how we function. This is how we've always functioned. This is what makes us good. This is what makes sure that we get decisions that we've aired all the objections, we've aired all the options out. And they all said, look, once the civilian command makes a decision, we will execute. And we will execute fully committed to that execution. And we will be even more fully committed to executing because we've had an opportunity to air our disagreements, because we presented all the different options and presented what we think should be done. So this is I think, a powerful message about disagreement generally, and about how even in the military, even in a very hierarchical organization like the military, you can have healthy disagreement. Healthy disagreement. All right, so two stories. So first, I think it's a step in the right direction. Again, 2 years or a year and a half later than it should have been. Gaza should have been occupied when Israel first entered the city of Gaza. Remember, Israel entered the city of Gaza a year and a half ago. Why they ever left is the question. Why they weren't committed to occupying the entire Gaza Strip from the beginning, I don't understand. There are a lot of things in this war that's now lasted almost 2 years that I do not understand. Strategically, tactically, it just seems like it's been filled with mistakes. Israel's done a phenomenal job with Hezbollah in Lebanon. Israel did a phenomenal job with Iran, cut it off too short, but generally did a phenomenal job with Iran. Just unbelievable. The intelligence, the military capabilities, the accuracy, the thought, the strategic initiative, all of that is brilliant, both with regard to Hezbollah and with regard to Iran. In Gaza, I think Israel has floundered and has not done anywhere near as well as they should have strategically. I think operations on the ground have been phenomenal. Every general you've talked to, American general, European general, thought that Israel was going to take gazillions of casualties, and yet Israel's managed to do what it's done with very little casualties, relatively speaking. But it has floundered strategically. So I don't expect things to get much better. This occupation of Gaza, I hope it goes as planned. I hope they actually capture the whole of Gaza. I hope they free the hostages. I hope they manage to do all that, but they haven't succeeded in any of their plans so far. So I'm strategically, again, tactically, they've done a phenomenal job. So we will see if this is they succeeded. Okay, two stories related to Hezbollah. The first is just this amazing, just an amazing story by Associated Press. It's a story. It's a full-length story filled with pictures, photographs. There's actually a warning at the beginning of the piece. Please note the story contains images of children and adults who suffered severe injuries. The article is about the survivors of Israel's pager attack on Hezbollah and how they struggle to recover. It's supposed to make you feel sorry for these terrorists who had their pagers blow up in their hands and in their faces, who've lost eyes, who've lost fingers, and how difficult it is to recover. And you, the reader, are supposed to feel sorry for these bastards. Now, it's true that some innocents were hurt by the pager attack. The children of terrorists who picked up the pager by mistake and it exploded in their hands. But this is on the terrorists. Don't become a terrorist and your children will be safe. But the article includes interviews with, people who are terrorists and who suffered. Good. There were also 4 women who ultimately received medical treatment in Iran, who say they were civilians. We don't know that, if they were civilians or what role they had in the Hezbollah. But no mention here about how horrific Hezbollah is, about its ideology, about its terrorist activities. No, we're supposed to feel sorry for these bastards. It really is despicable for a news agency to run a story like this. Imagine if would they do this for ISIS? Probably not. I mean, I'm sure a lot of ISIS people got injured when America bombed ISIS. Hospitals were like a slaughterhouse. It was terrible, blood everywhere. They got off easy. If not for the pager attack, if Israel would have had a bomb in these regions, many, many more people would have died. But you're not going to get any perspective like that. And, what you get is, isn't it horrible that these people are suffering? Suffering is the standard of virtue in the world in which we live for so many people. It really is, disgusting and immoral and horrific. All right, second story about Hezbollah is basically good news. The Lebanese government today voted that to unilaterally disarm Hezbollah. They basically asked the Lebanese military to present them a plan by the end of the month on how they are going to basically take all the weapons away from Hezbollah. This was an official statement by the government. It was a government decision. The Hezbollah members of the government did not resign for the government. They left the meeting. They didn't vote, but they did not resign. The decision by the Lebanese government was unanimous, with the exception of the Hezbollah members who left. At the same time, following this announcement, thousands, tens of thousands of Hezbollah supporters have gone into the streets. They are on motorcycls, on foot. They have filled the streets of Beirut, particularly. Oops, that's video of it. Particularly the streets of Beirut, but also in southern Lebanon, in the different villages, and in the cities of Tzor and Sidon. Hezbollah members are filling the streets in protest for this. But this is a fantastic news made possible by the pager attack and by Israel's brilliant campaign to basically eviscerate Hezbollah's leadership and Hezbollah's will to fight. And the consequence of that has been to embolden the Lebanese army to finally stand up to Hezbollah and be willing to challenge them, and now basically to disarm them. We'll see if it goes through. We'll see if this launches a second a civil war within Lebanon. I think if it does turn into a civil war, you know what side Israel is going to be on, and Israel will be supporting the Lebanese army. So I don't think Hezbollah has a chance. Again, this is one more little step towards a complete realignment of the Middle East, a complete change in a power structure in the Middle East for the better, significantly for the better. So while Israel's not doing what's necessary completely in Gaza, while Iran is not being fully defeated, Iran's power base is basically being eroded and is being ground to a trivial power base. It's gone as the great Iranian force that it was just a couple of years ago. And Hezbollah will, if the Lebanese army goes through with this, will no longer be a threat to Israel and the northern border, will no longer be a threat to the Lebanese government itself. Lebanon can now reform itself, can now turn itself back, hopefully, into the kind of society it was, pre-Civil War, maybe in the 1970s. The next step is for the Lebanese to do something about the Palestinian problem that they have in there. Maybe give them Lebanese citizenship. Maybe stop treating them as refugees and treat them as Lebanese. They've been living there long enough. All right, I just saw a flash of interesting news that maybe contradicts what I said earlier about Trump and Putin. And this would be amazing if it turns out to be true. So let's hope it turns out to be true. I'm willing to be wrong, and I'd rather have good stuff happen than me be right. And so if this is true, Trump is now demanding, supposedly, that Putin meet with Zelensky before he meets with Trump. So Trump is now backing out of the one-on-one meeting with Putin and demanding that Putin first meet with Zelensky. That would be pretty amazing. And I give Trump credit. That is the right move. Still wouldn't meet with Putin, but that is the right move. And that will kill that meeting because no way Putin is going to meet with Zelensky. So Trump is backing out of it. Maybe Trump knows, maybe people around Trump knows that Putin will run circles around him. So interesting to see in the days to come how this is exactly going to play out. All right, let's see what I want here. Super chat. Let's go to a super chat. Oh yeah, you still got time to ask questions. You still got time to support the show with a sticker if you'd like. Value for value. Those of you who would like to become regular supporters, monthly supporters, which is in a sense better for me because it's more predictable, less fun. I don't get to harangue you about making contributions on the super chat, and I don't get to answer your questions. But if you do so on Patreon, it'd be great for you to go on Patreon and become a supporter. I just got an email from somebody who just became a $25 monthly supporter on Patreon. So that's great. So the more the better. Patreon, I think, is marginally better. I'm having a little bit of trouble right now on PayPal. If you do have a PayPal monthly account supporting the show, please check to make sure that you're actually making payment, that PayPal has not dropped you or something, because it's doing weird stuff. All right. Let's see. Ryan says, hi. If we start a revolution today, we would lose. Did early Americans think they would win versus Britain? They signed the Declaration regardless. The violations were so egregious that they had no choice. What principle changes to make it tolerable now? Well, I mean, the main principle, there are two principles, I'd say. One is the founders had no input into decision-making in England. There was no political process that allowed them to vote or to have a real voice in English politics. It was truly, there was no representation. The colonies were not represented in Parliament. Therefore, Parliament and the king had authoritarian rule over the colonies. It's not the situation today. The situation today is we elect our leaders, and the reality is that most people are fairly happy with the leaders we have. So who would sign this declaration? You know, the 5,000 people who listen to your Yaron Brook show every day? Okay. What about the 350 million people who don't sign it and don't agree with it and don't want it? So it's not, you know, there is an issue of viability. Now, it's true, the founders thought the probability of victory was low, but it wasn't a certainty that they were going to lose. Whereas if we start a revolution today, we will with certainty lose. And if our revolution turns into civil war in America, whoever lands up winning that civil war is not going to be us. And maybe it's going to be people a lot worse than what we have today. So the principle is you have to have some chance of success. You have to have some base of support. 5,000 out of 350 million does not count as a base of support. 1 million doesn't count as a base of support. My guess is that between 20 and 40% of the colonists supported the revolution. Maybe 50, maybe 60%. I don't know. We'd have to ask a revolutionary expert. They had a significant base of support in America. We don't. We do not have that base of support. 350 million, what do we have, 100,000 maybe? Maybe, on a good day. Maybe sympathetic broadly, 500,000 out of 350 million. So we would have to have, I'd say 20% semblance of support. You know, the government gets its, what is it, what's the terminology? Where you say that, you know, the government is the government of the people. It represents the people, and it gets its sanction, it gets its authority from the people. Well, if you win a revolution today, if the objective of revolution is successful, we don't have a mandate from the people. The people don't believe in this. So you can't rule over people who don't believe in what you advocate for if you're for freedom. So what would be the point of a revolution? Even if we win? And 99% of the people disagree with us? So, no, I mean, first you have to do the legwork of building up enough of a base of support, and then you have the revolution. The Founding Fathers had enlightenment. They had a very highly educated population. They had a highly educated population that was inclined towards these ideas, that was well-read and understood what the principles that they were writing about. Today, if you wrote a Declaration of Independence that said, we have an inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, people would go, does that mean I have a right to an iPhone? Do I have a right to my video games? Do I have a right to repair? Do I have a right to do whatever the hell I want? Do I have a right to my health care? They have no conception of rights. The founders could exploit the fact that the people around them were basically men of the revolution. Milei has made it work. He'll reform Argentina, and it'll get to a point where the Argentinians will vote him out and vote a socialist in, just like they did in Chile. Because the intellectual revolution has not happened in Argentina. Now, maybe it can happen in the meantime. But if you think this is it, Argentina is now heading towards an objectivist country, it's going to become 100% laissez-faire capitalist, then you are delusional. You are delusional. It'll work. Argentinians will get rich, they'll feel guilty, and they'll vote in a socialist. And again, this experiment has been run in Chile. Now, I'm all for Milei doing what he's doing, and it's great. And the Argentinians will get rich. Good for them. This is going to be wonderful for them. But is this the long-term solution? No, it can't be. The long-term solution is educational. it is changing the ideas in the culture. There's no alternative to that. There are no shortcuts. Richard, earlier this week, you showed a chart of price changes over the past 25 years. It showed TV prices have gone down 98%. I found it hard to believe a TV costs 2% of what a comparable TV cost in 2000, even with technological changes. Well, you know, I know you find it difficult to believe, but it is the reality. It is the reality. I can tell you that in 2000, was it 2000? In 2000, I bought a TV. I bought the biggest TV I could find. I think it was an 82-inch TV. It was this big, bulky thing. And it cost me $10,000. That TV cost me $10,000. And it was it was a box because it was a projection, it was internal projection TV. 82 inches. I basically bought a similar size TV. If you go today to Best Buy to buy a similar size TV, it's about an inch thick, and it costs under $1,000. You can get one for under $1,000. And the picture quality is, I don't know, 5 times better, 10 times better. They last a long time. They, again, they're thin. Picture quality is amazing. Many of them are smart TVs, so you can have your Netflix and Apple TV. They're already preloaded with all that software onto the TV, so you don't need an external box. Yeah, it's easily 98%. Easily 98%, if not more. Just you know, again, I've got the experience because I bought 82 or 85-inch television in 2000, and I know what they cost now at Best Buy. So it's just the price. Just the price is 90% cheaper. But you're getting a TV that is, you know, worth, which you couldn't get, right? You couldn't get that thinness, you couldn't get that picture quality back then at any price. But you know, the quality is what, 10 times better? Maybe 50 times better? Ian says an 85-inch TV, I mean, the lower end 85-inch TV is $600 at Best Buy, $600. So that's already over 90% discount, less than 2,000. And that's not taking into account the improved quality. So yeah, 98% is exactly right. Probably more than 98%. All right, still time for questions, guys. Michael, is the starvation in Gaza narrative nothing but a modern-day anti-Semitic blood libel, or has Hamas found a way to effectively starve its own population? Well, both. Why is one or the other? It's definitely a modern-day blood libel. The Jews are you know, have blood in their hands, and it's also true that for some Gazans, I don't think it's widespread, but for some Gazans, Hamas is basically starving their own population because Hamas has the food and they're not distributing it. They have the UN aid and they're not distributing it. They stole it off the trucks and they're not distributing it. So it's both. Exalt yourself. What about Andrew Coulson's argument that non-refundable tax credits are only acceptable, or the only acceptable school choice option, with other options too coercive and associated with subsidization? Do ESAs facilitate single-payer education? I don't know why they facilitate single-payer education. They don't give you the full amount for every private school. They give you a set amount, the amount that the government was spending anyway on a public school. Public school expenditures at the state level have gone down. and are being replaced by payments of these education saving accounts. So let's say the state pays $12,000 per kid. It gives you the $12,000 instead. Doesn't change the state budget, but the state is sending $12,000 less to government schools in that state. That's a good thing. It's starving those schools of funds. And the $12,000 now is in your bank account to be used on educational products as you see fit. So is that subsidizing education? Sure. But it's subsidizing you to buy education, which is the better way to if you're going to subsidize something, that's the way to subsidize it. That's more effective because it leaves the choices with you. It's not the government buying you education. That it's not the government choosing which schools to spend your money on. It's the government giving you money so that you can spend it on any school you want. Now, again, it's not ideal. The ideal is, the thing we want is the government to get out of education completely, but that's not going to happen. So I like education saving accounts. I think they're good. Now, tax refundable tax credits are also great, maybe even better. What I don't like is a voucher that can only be used in government-approved private schools. That I'm against, because then the government gets to decide what you use it on. But in some states, you're even allowed to use the education saving account, the money, to homeschool. And that gives a huge incentive for people who don't have money to homeschool, and they're getting some of their tax money or some of their future tax money back. I just don't see the downside in this. It's money the government's spending anyway. So while tax credits are good, they don't help people who don't pay taxes, which is, a big chunk of the U.S. population doesn't pay any taxes. I mean, in terms of income taxes. So they can't use this, and yet they're the ones harmed the most by government schools. I mean, if you're upper middle class, you can afford a private school. And what this does is it returns some of your tax money to you. So I don't see how anybody could object to that. But if you're poor in America, the schools that you're sending your kids to are truly horrific. And if you're an entrepreneur thinking of starting a school in South Chicago, where are you going to get your clientele? It's going to be very difficult for you to make a living. You're not going to be able to charge much of a tuition. This allows you to start a school in that area, to create competition, and to actually get some income. Now, the income is coming from the government through the individual who's choosing you. The money goes to the individual, and then they choose to spend it on you. Okay, I'd like to get government out of the funding of schools as well. But that could be a second step. Let's get them out of the business of owning schools, running schools, managing schools, dictating curriculum for schools as a step one. And then as a second step, we can get them out of funding the schools. So I don't think there's only one way to do this, and I don't think you can only do it you're going to do it in one step, right? Now I'll read Andrew Coulson. I haven't read Andrew Coulson, but I'll read Andrew Coulson and see what he has to say about this. But again, I'm not saying any of this is ideal. I'm just saying, if I can starve the government schools, I want to starve the government schools. I'll take any option that reduces the power, or almost any option, that reduces the power of school unions and reduces the budgets of government schools and gives more opportunities and more options to parents. And if that means that the government for a while is still subsidizing education, so be it. Because they're subsidizing through by it's like welfare payment. Am I against welfare? Sure. But do I think the welfare is the first thing that needs to be cut? No. So, if we increase welfare a little bit so that these people can send their kids to school that is not a government school, and we reduce the government expenditure on schooling, I think it's a net win and a step towards government getting out of the business completely. Because once we liberate the economy and people actually start making real money, then everybody will be able to afford the schools, and then it'll be easy to just eliminate the education saving accounts. Ali says, I think it's completely reasonable to expect free healthcare in the United States. A heart attack can cost $120,000, and even a broken leg runs thousands. I can't even bring my parents here. There is no such thing as free healthcare. The only question is who pays. And what you're saying is that you want me to pay for your parents' healthcare. And I don't want to. I don't want to pay. I don't know your parents. And I do not want to pay for your parents' healthcare, because the reality is that somebody has to pay for the $120,000 of a heart attack. Somebody has to pay for it. So what you're suggesting is that I pay for it, because I'm paying taxes, and my taxes will go up significantly, and I will pay for it. I think that's wrong. Now, on the other hand, most Americans, what 95% of Americans do, or maybe 99% of Americans today, is they buy insurance. And insurance will cover you on the heart attack. And no heart attack will cost you $120,000 if you have insurance. I have insurance. I'm not worried financially about having a heart attack. My insurance will pay for it. I'll be out of pocket some money. I've got some deductible. But just buy insurance. People will ask for it, sure. But they should just buy insurance. And to get insurance that's affordable, all you have to do is deregulate it. So yes, people are going to demand it, but their demand is irrational, it's immoral, and we should fight it. And we should teach people how to fight it and to understand why it's wrong. So let's make insurance affordable. Let's make healthcare affordable. You make insurance affordable, you make healthcare affordable by getting the government out of the business of regulating it and paying for it, which is what it does with Medicare. Again, I think moving Medicare to a voucher system as phase one in a long-term solution to phase it out is the way to move towards privatizing it. So I'd say just buy insurance. Insurance is available to almost everybody in the U.S., really to everybody, and almost anybody can afford it, particularly if you live in a relatively unregulated state. And healthcare becomes affordable. Now, long-term, there are better solutions. Liberate healthcare. Get government out of the business of healthcare. Separation of state from healthcare as the final goal. I've done shows on how to get there. But yes, I understand that people are panicking. They panic. They fear. They're in distress because they might get a $120,000 bill. But why are they going to get that bill if they have insurance? And if they don't have insurance, why don't they have it? If they're poor, they get Medicaid. If they're old, they get Medicare. And if they're not poor, then why don't they buy insurance? All right, Richard says, I'll accept that we're getting at least 50x value from TVs in the past 25 years. College tuition went up 194.4% in the same time. Has the value of a college education gone up at least that much since 2000? No, I think it's gone down. That is, the value of a college education has probably gone down, not up at all. But TVs, you're getting 50x value. But college, you're not. And the reason there's a divorce, there's a split between the what do you call it? The value and the price in education and in healthcare is that the purchaser is not you. The purchaser is the government. Note that even in a health saving account or a medical saving account, educational saving account or medical saving account. In an educational saving account, if you get $12,000 in and the tuition you spend for your kids is only $8,000, you've got $4,000 left to roll over to a college education or to use for other educational items for your kids, tutoring, for example. So it's your money, you get to use it, right? But you have an incentive built in to save, not to splurge. But if the government is directly paying the hospital, you don't even know. You have no choices. And you have no choices motivated by money because the government is paying it. You never see the bill. Jeffrey, thank you for the sticker. Let's see. John, thank you for the sticker. I'm just going to go through the stickers and thank everybody because I haven't done that today. Mike, thank you for the sticker. Silvanos, thank you for the sticker. Ryan and Jonathan, thank you for the stickers. And let's see, an esoteric dichotomy. Thank you, guys. All right. Still time for questions if you want. Let's see, Hopper Campbell. The road to fascism is lined with people telling you that you're overreacting. Overreacting. The road to fascism is lined with people telling you you're overreacting. Yeah, I mean, I think even better than that is the road to fascism is lined with people telling you you're being too principled. Because overreacting is too emotional. Monotropic. Rand had a principle that one must never fail to pronounce moral judgment. Could condemning and shaming someone who cheats on their spouse be an application of this principle? Yeah, if you know the person. But the idea of publicly shaming somebody you don't know, I mean, I don't see that as an application of anything to anything. And what does it mean to cheat on their spouse? Do you know the exact circumstances of what happened? For example, I'm assuming this relates to the CEO of this company. Do you know the exact circumstances of what went on here? Are you sure that he is in the wrong or she is in the wrong or what exactly is going on? I mean, Reardon cheated on his wife. Should he have been publicly shamed? Would you want to participate in the publicly shaming of Reardon for sleeping with Dagny? I wouldn't. I am happy that Reardon cheated on his wife. Sometimes you get into circumstances where cheating is the only option, the only moral option, because of the complete irrationality of the other party. Now you need to separate yourself from that party, and as long as you don't, you are committing a real offense. But the shaming is not about the cheating. The shaming is that you're staying with a woman that you despise. That you should be ashamed of. But you don't know, I mean, why would you participate in a public shaming when you don't know all the details, when you don't know who's involved? What would motivate you to do that? I'm not talking about you specifically. What would motivate a person to do that? What benefit is it to you? Like, clearly, pronouncing moral judgment on somebody you know, in a context you know, in a situation that's real, has an impact on your life because these are people you know that impact you. But condemning somebody far away that has no impact on your life, that we're not talking about politics or anything like that, just to put, I mean, what's the point? Why waste the time? It's like, I can see it being in your self-interest to provide charity for people in your neighborhood or for the local children's hospital or something like that. Why would you give charity to something that's continents away? Why would you care about somebody cheating in one city over? It doesn't matter. It's their problem. And again, what's the motivation for doing something? You have to have a positive reason to do something. And I don't think it's justice. It's just too small of an act. It just doesn't matter that much. And you don't know the circumstances. You don't know the context. I mean, it's very dangerous to come to conclusions about people's personal lives. Very dangerous to judge people's personal lives. You don't know what's going on in the bedroom. You don't know what's going on in their life. I don't think you're in a position to judge. Andrew, are most Americans morally good most of the time and just don't realize they're being moral because altruism is the accepted morality? What are the consequences of denying egoism intellectually, even if one practices it? Well, I think the biggest one is consistency. And of course, the other one is self-esteem. You don't gain self-esteem because you don't gain a recognition of your own virtue. You don't gain pride. You don't experience the virtue of pride, and therefore you can't experience self-esteem. So you can act self-interested in the world, but if you think ultimately that's a vice, you will feel guilty. You'll feel the opposite of self-esteem. You'll undermine yourself. You'll accept the idea that all people are flawed and we're all fallen and we're all bad, right? Hopefully that's an answer. All right. Why is Israel so bad at PR? Or is it anti-Semites so entrenched? Or is anti-Semitism so entrenched? No matter what you do, they will be crushed by ignorance. Netanyahu tried to get on Joe Rogan's podcast and was turned out. I don't think it's an issue of PR. Israel's story is not appealing. It is a strong, competent, rich actor defending itself. Nobody has sympathy for that. So what Israel has against it is not anti-Semitism as a primary. What it has going against it as a primary is altruism. Israel, what is Israel what PR does Israel need to do which would convince people that it's okay for them to defend themselves, and that includes the possibility of children dying? Is the world going to ever accept that? An altruistic world. Can an altruistic world accept that? I don't think so. So I don't think it's an issue of PR. It's an issue of the world and Israel don't have the right philosophy. They don't have the right philosophical view of morality, and they don't have the right philosophical view of war. Not your average algorithm. All animals are slaves. No, slavery only applies to human beings. Animals are not cognitive beings. They're not human beings. They don't have rights, and therefore they're not our slaves. Jonathan, some animals have demonstrated a limited but very clear, real capacity for reason, such as elephants, chimps, magpies, and dolphins. Should they have some limited rights to the degree of the limited reason? No. Rights are a consequence of having your full capacity of reason. They're a consequence of being able to determine your own fate, to understand, for example, the idea of property. None of those beings have an understanding of property. I don't think they have an understanding of anything. Maybe they have some ability to connect words to objects. And if you count reason as also including your senses, they certainly have that feature of reason that is at a perceptual level. But can they abstract? And the answer is no, they cannot abstract. They can't form concepts. Maybe they can understand certain concepts. They can't form them like human beings do. And they can therefore form a concept of rights, property, speech, freedom of action, government. If you can't form those concepts, you can't have rights. So reason is not a continuum. And you get rights based on how far you are on the continuum. No. Can you form these concepts? Can you have an understanding of these concepts? As a being, do you have that potential or don't you? And if you don't have that potential, you don't have that capacity, you don't have rights. So it's 0-1, it's not a continuum. Even children are basically they have full rights, but their rights are being held, in a sense, the application of those rights is being held by their parents, as long as their parents don't violate certain rights. The parents are responsible for executing those rights until they reach an age where they can make decisions for themselves. But it's not that, and they gain more and more control as they have more and more control, as they gain more and more understanding. But that's children. They have the potential. They can reach it. They will form their understanding. Animals will never form their understanding. They cannot form their understanding. I like numbers. Who'd be in the coalition on Dodd-Frank repeal? A bunch of free market types, economists, and others. Some of the people I've interviewed on the show would all be in favor of repealing Dodd-Frank. Some bankers, not all, but most bankers would be for, but that's about it. Not many others. There's not a big coalition to do it, and it's certainly not a powerful coalition, and therefore it won't pass. Ryan, until we change the philosophy and the culture. Bill Maher, etc., are saying, I guess Trump's tariffs aren't bad, economy is good, I was wrong. But they're not even in effect yet. What's the deal? Well, some of them are in effect. And they're wrong anyway, because the economy is not that great. Economy could be better. Economy is stagnant. And, job creation, we just saw the revised numbers, is not good. No, the economy is not doing well. And prices are up. So people who have a short-term mentality and who don't understand exactly how tariffs work and how an economy works and how complicated an economy is and how little trade plays overall in the U.S. economy are confused. But that's their confusion. They're wrong. Is it helpful to debate policy on social media? Only if you can bring out principles that can then maybe stimulate people to go read more and to think more. If you're just debating policy for the sake of debating policy, no. You have to come to principles. You have to get to getting people to think outside the box in a broad abstract level, and go and investigate more deeply. Hector, America has never been united by blood or birth or soil. We are bound by ideas that move us beyond our backgrounds. That's George W. Bush. Yeah, once in a while he said something that was right, but that's unusual. Adam Reed says, I'll buy Swiss chocolate. No one here makes salt-free, no sugar-added chocolate like Gyador with almond paste and steviol. My doctor's orders plus my own taste. I don't like steviol. I don't like artificial sweeteners. I don't like them at all. So, that's just my taste. What I eat is 99% and 100% chocolate, which has so little sugar that it's irrelevant. But you have to like the taste of that. It's, pure cacao. Jonathan, I've heard you say the U.S. shouldn't have entered World War I. Did you know that Germany bombed New York Harbor in 1916 and was sinking U.S. vessels in 1915 and in 1917? I didn't know they bombed New York. I knew they were sinking U.S. vessels. And look, I'm not an expert on World War I, so I'll grant you that. I'm not an expert, and maybe Germany didn't leave the United States any real option. Why were we even supporting Britain? The reason they were sinking U.S. vessels is we were supporting Britain. Why? Was Britain in the right in World War I and Germany in the wrong in World War I? I don't know. It wasn't a war that was relevant to the United States. It wasn't a war we should have taken sides in. It wasn't a war we should have, and maybe if we hadn't taken sides in, and I don't think we should have, because it was not clearly good versus evil like World War II, I don't know that U.S. vessels would have been sunk. So I suspect, and granted, I should do more reading on World War I, that we made a lot of mistakes, and we were way too interventionists, and it's just a dumb war that we shouldn't have allowed ourselves to be dragged into. Now, Wilson wanted to go to war, So I wouldn't be surprised if he did things to provoke the Germans into sinking our ships. Granted, once they sink our ships, you have to defend yourself. Esoteric dichotomy. Hey, Yaron, did you see any clips from the DSA, Dem Society of A, I'm not sure what A is, Democratic Socialist, at town hall? They want to abolish the family, said marriage equals prostitution, childhood equals slavery. Yeah, I mean, they're nuts. These are crazy left-wing crazies. So, I mean, I showed some clips from some professors from the Socialism Convention. They were pretty kooky. I haven't seen these. I mean, again, these are kind of ideas that will never take hold on a significant number of Americans. Americans love marriage. They're not going to. Nobody's going to believe childhood is slavery. These are not winning ideas. As I've said, the left is, the far left ideas are so nutty that they can't win. Can't win systematically in large places. They can win in New York because there's a bunch of spoiled, relatively wealthy kids who vote for them, and professionals, and it's a left-wing place. But they can't win on a national scale. They can't win outside of New York and maybe, coastal cities on the West Coast. It's just not this kind of ideology. Marriage equals prostitution, not a winning ideology. Jacob, do you have time for Portugal, Spain recommendations? I sent an itinerary mostly looking for great food. I forgot about it, so let me go back and look at it and try to get that to you. Can you resend it, Jacob? I can't see it. I'm looking right now and I can't see it. Yeah, let me know. Resend me that email and I'll send you the recommendations. Sorry about that. Kim, as a CEO in current environment, is it better to be principled and not bow to Trump or get on his good side for shareholders' sake? I'd say that you can only bow so much. So I don't know how CEOs do it, but it's never been this corrupt in America. So are you willing to play this corruption game? I don't know. I mean, it's a price you pay for being the CEO of a large company. Maybe you quit. Maybe you quit and make a statement. Maybe you make a statement and take the brunt of what Trump sends your way, with the idea that long-term this will be good for shareholders, short-term they'll take a hit. I know John Allison did that, but he also, accepted a lot of the regulations. So he spoke up against it constantly. I don't think that it's in shareholders' interest or your interest to do the kind of groveling and the kind of performative acts that some CEOs are doing right now. So no, you are selling the company's soul is not good for shareholders, not in the long run. Ryan says, thanks for answering my revolution question thoroughly. My pleasure. Peter Rothline, my tennis buddy is into astrology and Palestine. I told him our practices are of greater value than all the horoscopes and intifadas put together. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I could practice tennis with somebody who held those views. That would be hard to tolerate people like that. Andrew, it's amazing how many problems in society exist because of government intervention. Yeah, it's everywhere. Capitalist Spy, what are your thoughts on Trump pick for the next Fed chairman, Stephen Mirand? So much bad news as we need more. Has he picked him, or he's one of the 4 that he's considering? I think they're all terrible. Anybody who's Trump's pick for the Fed chairman is going to be terrible. Because one thing we know is that he won't pick anybody who's going to be independent, who's going to stand up for himself. He's looking for people who will do as they're told, and that already is a disqualifier. Blaze guitar lesson: has school choice worked in Sweden? No, because in Sweden it's not school choice. In Sweden, every school basically has the same curriculum. The curriculum is set by the government. You can choose which school to send your kid to, but they're all teaching the same stuff. So the government is completely in control of education, and that, of course, I'm opposed to. School choice, if that is the case, if the state government takes control over the curriculum of private schools, that's a disaster, and that needs to be avoided. And any scheme that creates that is bad. I don't think education saving accounts do that, but if they do, then I'm against them. But I don't think they do that, not from what I've seen. Can you name your favorite brand of sardines? I cannot. I love sardines. I like canned sardines, but